Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Becoming You podcast. I am super excited to have another guest this week. Her name is Lisa Fee, and we came to know each other through LinkedIn. And Lisa has done many years of breathwork with me. She's one of my private clients. And so I'm so excited to have her today because she is coming out with a new book, which I think is just anytime anyone tells me they've written a book, published it, and it's about to go out into the world, I just think it is such an incredible accomplishment because it is such a big act of vulnerability. So I'm so thrilled to welcome you, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me, Visa. And I'm so excited to talk about this book because you're a contributor to it as well.
I know. I was so honored when you invited me to contribute. I was like, what?
Well, some of my biggest writing breakthroughs happened after breathwork sessions together. And so I knew that I had to bring some of your wisdom and your voice to a broader audience, because when somebody first told me I was going to pay somebody to teach me how to breathe on a Zoom call, I thought that was like the best, pulled the wool over the eyes, fool's errand of time. But it really has helped me get in touch with my own inner wisdom and quiet all those voices in my head that say you can't do things. And I'm really excited to talk with you about it today.
Amazing, amazing. Well, we are going to get deeper into all of that. But first, why don't we start with who you are and what you do?
Sure. So I worked in corporate America for 18 years, most of that time at Intel Corporation. So my last couple of roles there, I worked as a solution owner for AI for Good. And I also retired as the director of revenue for the Enterprise and Government's Hybrid Cloud Group. So a pretty traditional type of international, go to engineering school, work up the ladder, get the titles, yada, yada kind of progression. But I found myself at a place 18 years into my career where it just wasn't serving what I wanted to leave as my legacy. And so I stepped into entrepreneurship with a lot of urging from some of my fellow angel investors and board members, colleagues, and the support of my family to continue the work that I'd started in AI for Good. So I launched a software company with my co-founder, Hassan, from Apple. We wanted to focus on making kids safer online and in real life. So we launched our company, Minor Guard, together. Ran that for a while, and then he took our roadmap back into Apple. They gave him a $12 million budget to build it in-house, and I took our company's Android roadmap into a larger player in the market with Bark Technologies. And after I did my earnout there, I have been focusing on management consulting in the AI for Good space as well. So that's working with large tech companies, healthcare institutions, and entrepreneurs that are looking to innovate using AI to solve really big, hairy social justice issues, so like bias in healthcare or trust and safety violations on platforms. So I'm usually the person that's working between the legal groups and the engineering groups and the operation groups, trying to make sure that terms of service are being applied or that regulators can approve solutions for clinical settings, because we have made sure they work for everyone.
So you're working on some really big global issues here with your work. That's what it sounds like to me. A lot of that, it went a little bit over my head, but it sounds like you're solving very important, pressing issues of our times.
I like to joke and say, but there's a little bit of truth in every joke. I consider myself one of the highest paid social workers of all time. I really like to bring influential leaders with a vision for what could be better for the larger population with innovation together to address those kinds of issues at scale. So for me, my passion is helping marginalized women and children to have a better foot into the world and be able to thrive both mentally and physically with health. And so that's where I focus my talents. But I've worked in AI, either building products, deploying products, defining products, or selling consulting services in the space since 2016.
That's amazing. Just the breadth of experience that you have and the depth of experience you have. But I think one of the main reasons that my audience of this podcast can really relate to you maybe is working in the corporate world, and kind of at the back of your mind, you said there was a point in my life or many years, maybe you felt this way, like it just felt like it doesn't matter how hard I work. This isn't like something's missing, something's off, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that journey and that realization and that awakening?
Absolutely. So after I got married and had my children, I went from being a sales manager back into the tech world. And stepping into the tech world, what I found was that I got exposed to a lot of new technology that I was not aware of being out in working mom land prior to that. Uh, and I was really inspired to see some of the things they were doing to improve personalized medicine for cancer patients, or ways to improve reducing human trafficking in supply chains. How you could use data and information to find those, signals and the noise where something needs to be taken action on in the analog world, not in the digital world, where we really need to shift our focus. And so I spent a lot of time using my nights and weekends working on those kinds of projects and leading teams doing that work. But it was in addition to the day job. And that was okay for a while. But what I found was with the demands of my day job scope increasing, my children's needs, my family's needs, and all the other hats that we have to wear as working moms, it was just getting untenable. I felt like I woke up in the morning and stepped on a treadmill and just started running as fast as I could until the end of the day, where I would collapse, move myself back into the bed and go to sleep and restart again. And this was pre-pandemic. This is before all the infrastructure closed down. And I realized that throwing myself at my job wasn't, and just doing more and more and more was never going to get me to the place where I could bring my most authentic innovation, creativity, and leadership. I was going to have to look at how do I take what I'm doing today, understand where I'm adding my most unique value, and determine where I want to apply that so that I leave a legacy that helps other women in STEM or in non-traditional fields to actually leave a mark, actually not just earn a seat at the table, but change the conversation and pull up chairs for others as well.
Can you rewind back to what did those thoughts sound like? What did those feelings see like? Like it never starts as a scream, right? It always starts as a whisper of and then we just miss those whispers for a long time until all of a sudden you just wake up one day and you're like, whoa, what is happening? So can you talk about that?
Yeah, a lot of my whispers showed up as irritability, especially when people were asking me to do one more thing. And it could be something simple, but it just felt like I was always running on this line of, if I have to slow down for 1 second, it throws off the balance of all of the spinning plates. And if that happens, it doesn't just affect me, it affects my children, it affects my husband, it affects my the grandparents helping, all the things. And so I always felt like I was meeting the needs of everybody that I reported to, or I was responsible for, but I wasn't anywhere on that sheet of paper. But I would only notice it when I would be snappy in a meeting and I felt like I had to call somebody and apologize later because that was out of the kind of character I wanted to carry. Or I just didn't want to do the things that I used to enjoy. I didn't have that space to even process what I was doing. It was just like this speed and intensity. And it was what was required in an up or out culture from me for my day job. It wasn't optional. That was what it took to do that. I just didn't have the setup that a lot of the leaders that thrived in that environment did, of having somebody that took care of all of the things at home and all of the political kind of back channeling support that you need to thrive in leadership in corporate America. I had to work a little bit harder being not part of the group per se that was intended to be there. And I was always able to kind of outwork people. But after you get to a certain level of success, it becomes a lot more about, do people see you with leadership potential? All these soft and gooey things that say, are you a culture fit? Well, how do you prove that? I found the best way to prove it was to step out, to focus on a problem that I was passionate about, that I didn't mind learning about for years and years to come. I didn't mind being a beginner. I didn't,
Yeah.
because it was so important for me to do something about this that I was okay being uncomfortable. And that's how I was able to demonstrate my leadership as a CEO of a software company. When it was not at all anything on my radar before then, but I knew that I couldn't keep doing what I was doing or I was going to keep getting the same results.
Yeah, what I'm hearing when you said, are you a good culture fit after a while when you have worked as hard as you can and you think you've proven yourself, but it still doesn't seem to be quite enough. And then they ask you things like what you just said, right? Are you a culture fit? And that immediately made me think of, are you able to fit into the box that we provide for you? And that suffocates us, right? And you and I like went through the same process, right? Because I was a terrible fit for the corporate world. And only after I stepped out of the corporate world did I realize that it wasn't just because I was bad at my job. It was because that's not what I was intended to do. And I wasn't being my real authentic self, which that word is overused. But that's what I hear in your story is like you took what was of passion to you, interest, your skills, your experience, and you ask yourself, how can I make this work for me? It's not that something is wrong with me. So I'm perfectly okay. I'm sure you didn't feel that way at the time. But on hindsight, you can see that I was perfectly okay. Just the environment was not set up for my success. So I had to go create my own success.
Yeah, and I will say I'm really grateful that my first developmental years as an individual contributor happened in corporate America. I think I learned a lot of business acumen beyond the engineering school that I attended. I got to understand the sales and marketing process. There's so many levers that I learned being in that environment. It was a really good career start for me, but it got to a point when I was at a level of seniority where I wanted to focus on a broader perspective than shareholder return of a multinational tech company, that I wanted to do something a little bit more than that. And so if I wanted to step into the mission of disrupting human trafficking for vulnerable women and children, I knew that I had to set the culture and set the tone as the leader of the company. And I had done enough work within the confines of this company as an entrepreneur for a couple of years, running a $4 million project, helping the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children to build AI solutions for some of the challenges that they were facing, to help this problem with tech companies giving reports to law enforcement. I had enough of a network of deep technologists that understood the passion and were equally as committed. And I knew that even as I stepped out, I wasn't stepping alone. And they would be there to support me with relationships, with introductions, with funding, with leaving their day jobs to come work on this, with working nights and weekends to help me get a website up, things like that.
Yeah.
It just felt like the universe rose to meet me where I was, but I had to face my fear straight in the eye of not having a paycheck to rely on. I had to step out and know that I would eat what I kill. It wasn't going to be a guarantee.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly intimidating and took me a good year and a half to really say the whispers are getting louder. Now it's the rocks that are hitting me over the head. I'm getting injured in weird ways. I'm getting illnesses that don't make a lot of sense for someone my age. And then we got to bricks. I herniated a disc in my back getting out of the car.
Wow.
I mean, like, I need to get a better story. I literally picked up my laptop getting out of the car and I was hospitalized for 3 days. Those were the bricks where my body just wasn't going to not keep score, that I was trying to burn the candle on both ends. I was trying to be everything to everyone. I was trying to be my parents' definition of success and my own definition of success at the same time. And something had to give. Even the richest people in the world can't invent time. And I knew if I kept just throwing myself at it, I was going to find a place where I couldn't stand up again.
Yeah.
Literally and
Figuratively. And
figuratively.
yeah, I was just about to say that. Yeah.
So that's when I defined my 90-day reboot process. I was the first candidate for it. And I used a lot of the coaching and resources that I received at that time from working in trust and safety to rebuild my reserves, to focus on my wellness, to get clarity on my purpose, my values, and my vision, and then to start to leverage my network to create the job that I wanted to be in, whether that be within a large company or on my own as an entrepreneur. I've done both over the years. And it was a really fun reset after creating it for myself, coaching other executives in high paying jobs to replace their income in more fulfilling areas, to be back at the same well in 2021, where I realized, oh my goodness, I found myself back in the same position. I thought I learned this lesson in 2017. How did I end up doing this again? But wherever you go, there you are. We have our
Yep.
tendencies. And so I dusted off my process again to rebuild my career another time that served me better, and documented the process this time in more detail so that hopefully other people that find themselves coming back to the same place, that I can amplify that sense of restlessness in them, that there's got to be something more.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, your book is called, and I think this is going to serve so many people out there who find themselves in the position that you were in, many, many years ago, and you have created this framework and this process, and it's called Go Reboot Your Career in 90 Days. It's just such an amazing title because who doesn't want that, right? But except this is not like a fluff book. It's actual practical steps that the individual can take to create that very result that you put in your book title.
Yeah, we have the 90-day process in the book. There's also a lot of information around how to successfully launch a business if that's where you decide that you want your reboot to take you, or doing something entrepreneurial and creating new projects with mission within a large company framework, which I've also done. A lot of details and case studies from other people that I've coached to do that as well. My goal is the first half of the book is to kind of keep reminding you that I feel like we all get in this trap of, oh my gosh, this is not sustainable. I can't do this. I'm really feeling uncomfortable in my work environment. I don't think it's a fit anymore. And then like one good thing happens and we like hold on to hope for a week and we're like, we can do this, we can do this. And then like the next thing where you get excluded from, or the next opportunity where they just pick somebody else and you didn't even know it was an option, you get set back over and over and over again. And I feel like it's not about figuring out how to win a game that was never created for working women. It's how to create our own game board and win and bring others with us.
Yeah, that is so powerful. Like everything you just said, I'm wishing that it was available, like how many of our X number of years ago, and I felt the same way in corporate. I don't know whether I would have stayed, but it would have been so great to have a book like this to support you in making that decision. Am I going to step out and step away? If so, what does that look like? Because oftentimes we don't take that step because we feel like there's nothing to catch you, right?
And
if you
I definitely felt that way when I was doing it. There's a quote I like from Toni Morrison that says something to the effect of, if there's a book that you want to read that doesn't exist, it's your job to write it. And that's actually what inspired me to take this journey, which was, I thought for sure I was going to be a homeless bag lady if I stepped out of my secure corporate job as a working mom to do my own company. There was no other path in my mind growing up from Detroit, Michigan, besides homeless bag lady, if you don't, do the tried and true reliable thing, especially pre-pandemic. And that wasn't what happened. I actually did better financially every year since. And when I coached others on this methodology, I saw their blood pressure measurements come down by being in a better fit. I saw them being a more engaged parent. I saw them, spending 80% of their time on things that energize them and minimizing the amount of things that drain them. And when you're in these structured environments, oftentimes you don't have a lot of control over that. And if you don't create something, you're going to continue to repeat that process. And I just can't imagine that we all were born on this planet to come grind it out, day in, day out,
That's right.
feeling like we don't add value.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I would love for you to share a little bit about, yes, you have this amazing book, you have this amazing process, but there was also a lot of, you mentioned this earlier, there was a lot of internal healing. that was happening as well, side by side, while, this was going on. So I would love for you to share, like, whatever it is that you feel comfortable sharing of what that looked like.
Yeah, a lot of my work was inspired by some of the trauma therapy that I received. So I spent most of 2016 to 2018 knee deep in data to chase down pedophiles that were
Hmm.
abusing children at scale online. And because I didn't have any of that trauma in my personal history, um, and I didn't I wasn't concerned that it was affecting me, my family directly. I didn't think it was going to be problematic. But what I didn't understand was vicarious trauma, and that as as you work alongside law enforcement and these people day in, day out over long periods of time, your brain can get confused and
Yeah.
not recognize someone else's trauma versus your own. And so what I found was I was having invasive thoughts of people hurting my children. I was
Mm.
having a hard time sleeping. And so in order to address that, I received some really great counseling from people that work with trust and safety folks in content moderation specifically. And as a result of that, I learned that I really had to get back in my body and out of my brain. And I had some ridiculous homework things to do. Like I literally had homework to watch puppy and kitten videos 20 minutes a day. Um, for months on end. And that just seems so frivolous. But what I learned from following the advice of these PhDs that understand how to unwind trauma was until I got to a place of regulation within myself, I was never going to see how I move forward and have the kind of life that I want. And so after that 90-day period, and it's 90 days for one reason and one reason only, it was the duration of my medical leave.
Mm.
I came back with a much clearer perspective on who I was, how I wanted to contribute, and where I could add my value. And had I not had that time, I think I'd still be selling servers in the tech industry and still saying the same things over and over and over again to my husband at night about how I feel like a cog in a wheel.
Mm.
And I'm grateful for those learnings, and I wanted to bring them to more people because this wasn't something I learned in college. This wasn't something I learned. It was school of hard knocks. And
Yeah.
when I launched my own company with wellness in mind for my workers, I saw them all flourish. I saw them all grow into these leaders that are now leading huge engineering teams at multinational companies or their own consulting firms. And there is a way to come out in the world authentically, and people will rise to the occasion. People are attracted to that. You can
Yeah.
bring your talents to a place where you feel like you can uniquely contribute. And I think, especially in this generative AI world that we're living in today, where things are moving so quickly, it is going to democratize the opportunity for people to create more solutions that meet maybe people that don't look like the traditional
Hmm.
customer base that's been designed for.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about breathwork specifically and how it's helped you?
Yeah, I must admit, breath work is a challenge for me. I'm pretty type A. I'm pretty go, go, go. But I got to this place where I just felt like I was my own worst enemy. Um, and those fears just blocked me from taking the brave actions I knew I needed to take to move the ball forward. And what helped me with breath work was releasing some of that pent up. I think, growing up being a figure skater, daughter of a hockey player, you learn to push through pain. You learn to push through fatigue. You learn to rise to the occasion. And it doesn't matter what you feel like, you look effortless. And I got pretty darn good at that. Um, except for the fact that it was very effortful. And if I
Mm-hmm.
didn't stop doing it, I was going to be in a world of hurt. And so breathwork helped me to slow down, to tune in, to release. And in that release of all of that stress, that is when I have my most creative and clear moments. Whenever we would get off a call together, I would frantically run to my phone and start writing whatever awareness I had down based on what we were focusing on in that session. And it almost every time it became a chapter of the book, because I realized that so many people think they're suffering with personal problems that are societal and systemic challenges. And I think we tolerate so much because we believe that we did something to bring this towards ourselves. And it's in normalizing that this is happening a lot of places and you don't have to play the game, that we are going to step into our full power and really start to move our society towards places we all want to live in for our children.
Yeah. What you shared is so powerful because for the formative part of your life, like feelings were welcome to be shut down, right? Like that's the only way you were going to get ahead was by shutting that part of yourself off. And it served you really well because it made you good at what you did. But then
what got us here won't get us there.
Exactly. And the things that served us, early on in our life or in our midlife, we're all in our midlife right now, will not get us to where we want to go. And I always tell people, you're allowed to change. You're allowed to change. A lot of times change feels so fearful because of what does it mean to my past self that I don't enjoy the things that I did once, right? It feels like almost a betrayal to ourselves or the life that we've lived so far. It's such a complex thing to want to change and to want to have a life that feels meaningful and purposeful and fulfilled. And sometimes that all those desires can feel so overwhelming that we would rather bury our heads in the sand and try to fix it and make the existing thing work than go out to the unknown.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And what I found is I thought I was changing to a future version of myself. But what I found through most of this work is I'm actually coming back to my authentic self before the world and the culture got its hands on me and started to shape and mold me in a way to be successful. And what's beautiful about slowing down to reflect on everything you've learned is that you've gotten to a stage in life where you have true wisdom now. You know what works for you. You know what doesn't work for you. You know where you felt like you're in your flow and you're doing something uniquely creative and there's a joy in it. And you know what it feels like to, drag your bones to a desk and just bite your tongue and get through it. And, I think that our next generation that comes into the workforce is going to have to be lifelong learners. They're going to have to redefine themselves over and over and over again. And we need to start role modeling what lifelong learning and redefinition looks like. And when I find you can go recover those abandoned parts of yourself and integrate them into who you are today, you really get energized enough to make those transitions. It's not the drain, it's the charge that gets your battery ready for the next challenge.
That's such powerful. You're just dropping so many golden nuggets right now. All right. Well, we're almost at the end of our time. I would love for our listeners to know where they can find your book.
Absolutely. So you can find my book at all the places you get them, barnesandnoble.com, amazon.com. It's Go Reboot Your Career in 90 Days by Lisa Thie. You can also go to my website, which is just lisathie.com/go and get the first 2 chapters for free as a preview. And if you ever wondered what it was like doing a TED Talk with brain damage, that is my first chapter of the book.
Oh my gosh. How can you not go buy the book after that, right? That's such a good hook.
Thank you. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. I got selected in 2020 before I got COVID. And so by the time that I delivered my speech in 2021, I had cognitive impairment. And I didn't know until 2 days before I got on stage. I had not delivered my speech correctly a single time.
Wow. I remember we had a breathwork session right before that.
Told you those breakthroughs. It was right then. And something clicked, something hit. I feel like when you can truly face your fears and be vulnerable, you can't lose what you never had. Like if you were meant to have it, you will. And surrender is a constant challenge for me. I like to try to influence my environment at all turns. But what I find is when I really get to a place of surrender, that's when some of my best outcomes happen. It just never feels that comfortable.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Everybody hates surrender, but then when we eventually, have those moments of releasing and letting go and just surrendering, like you said, the clarity comes rushing in, the lightness comes rushing in, and solutions just turn up like magically. You're like, how did I never think of that? Well, because there wasn't any space to receive it in the first place.
It's very
So,
true. I'm
yeah.
also very active on LinkedIn. So if people are interested in learning more about artificial intelligence in a relatable way, I host a web series called Navigating Abroad, where I interview leaders in the area from places like the United Nations and gaming companies and all sorts of areas that bring their different perspectives on how we can integrate AI into our lives for better societies. We just won the Gold Video Award for for short series, which was very, very exciting. And I
Congratulations. That's incredible.
Thank you. And we put in content all the time where you can start to see how AI for good can be applied in places like human trafficking and anti-money laundering and national security applications.
That's amazing. Well, we will drop all of those links. And if you want to connect with Lisa, she is on LinkedIn and she is powerfully connected and she's amazing at networking. So definitely go check out her book, check out her profile on LinkedIn and connect with her. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you so much, Bisa. Wouldn't have been possible without you.